Hello and welcome to position 7 of my Complete Chess Endgame series. This position and all these positions are based on Grandmaster Ram here, and it's kind of a progressive series, but I'm covering each specific endgame in a group. So this position here, if it's white to move, basically the idea in this position is called the rule of the square, which means in order to calculate very quickly if this black king can stop the white pawn in time, what you do, instead of just simply counting, which of course you can do, you can count, for example, here, and then black moves here, and then white moves here, and then, but the actual really quick way to do it, for example, if you're in a time scramble, is if it's white to move, once he moves here to h4, for example, you can calculate if black can stop it by looking first off how many squares goes down, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then going horizontally the same amount of squares and forming a square. So if the black king can't enter this square on his move and keep inside the square or on the edge of the square, for example here, then there's no way he can reach it. And so that's a very quick way to calculate if black can stop white, which in this position he can't. For example, if we play it out, we see that he's one move too late. Now we have a queen. Now if we look at this position from black to move, then it's actually only a draw, because with the extra move, black can enter the square of the pawn. If we simply play out the variation, for example, black plays king to c4, and we just try to advance our pawn, we can see that black reaches the pawn in time. And if we check the rule of the square, for example, here, we can see that once this square has been created, that black can now step into it. And either of these squares are fine, because once he's in the square, he can reach the pawn, either just marching his king down. He has lots of options. So now the king has entered the correct territory, as you can see. So it looks like there's this square, and now black enters it again. This square, he enters it again, and now this tiny square, and he enters it again. It gets interesting if white tries to circumvent this variation by trying to get over to the side of his pawn. It's still a draw because, for example, black plays the same thing, but white tries to bring his king over. Then it's a draw because this is a rook pawn, and there's no way for white, with just a king and a pawn, to prevent black from stepping out of the way, and it'll just result in a stalemate. So if we follow the variation all the way to the end, we see that black just stays in front of the pawn. If he tries to gain the opposition, then black just forces him back. And so at this point, it's a stalemate. And again, it's because it's a rook pawn. Rook pawns are very drawish in these kinds of positions for the simple reason that you can always blockade your king and there's no extra square for him to move. So if the pawn was here, it would still be stalemate if the king was here, but there's a lot more leeway because these squares provide an escape square for black, which is actually a detriment. Thanks for watching. Follow along to part 8 where we investigate a similar position that uses the rule of the square.